in 5 years. No, we all bear fruit according to our nature, right? If you're a fig tree, you're supposed to bear fruit after 3 years. If you're a human being, you bear fruit according to your personal timetable that God has given you, but it's there. Okay? So that's kind of the meaning of the story. Are we bearing fruit? Because if we don't, what's going to happen? We're going to get cut down, aren't we? We're going to get cut down. So listen to the meaning. Who's the vine dresser? The vine dresser is Jesus. And who's the owner of the vineyard, of the fig tree? God. And who's the fig tree? Us. So it's Jesus, another example of Jesus' ministry as high priest, interceding for his people in front of the Father. Give him a break. One more year. One more year. One more year, Father. And so that's what we can picture Jesus at the throne interceding for us as well in our times of weakness, in our times of frailty, in our times of sin. But the point is, our time is limited. Let us take advantage of the time that we have. So much for the fig tree. Verse 10. Now we have a couple of parables, and I want to collapse these two in the interest of time. In verse 10 of chapter 13, and then again in in chapter 14, verse 2, we have two individuals that are called by Jesus out in a situation in which they're just there minding their own business. They're part of a crowd observing the situation. They're sitting down at a table. They're at the synagogue. Whatever it is they're doing, they're not there saying, heal me, heal me, heal me. No, they're there just minding their own business. What's the difference between these individuals and the other individuals that Jesus is confronted with usually, who have to come up to him and say, heal me? What day is it? It's the Sabbath. So the only times Jesus initiates healing is on the Sabbath. The only time Jesus initiates healing is on the Sabbath day. Now, but other places we've seen how the Sabbath is claimed by Jesus. He says, the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. Now, he's saying that why? Because if you know what we've been talking about the Sabbath, you know that the Sabbath was considered, in a way, the benchmark of the covenant, right? The Sabbath was kind of the proof that we are the children of Israel. We are the chosen people, and you're not. We're going to observe all these rituals, and we're going to keep the Sabbath holy, and we're going to respect the commandments of the Lord. And it's the main thing, together with circumcision, that sets us aside as a people. And therefore, all the restrictions and all the rituals which pertain to the Sabbath are there to show how important the Sabbath is, and nothing is going to be more important than the Sabbath. And by the time the first century rolls around and Jesus is there, Jesus is saying, guys, the Sabbath is just an instrument. The Sabbath is just a way to honor God. It's just a way to obey God, but you have made of it an idol in a way. You have, in your extreme rigidity, especially the Pharisees, of respecting every single one of the 39 rules of what you could do and what you couldn't do, you've really hamstrung the population. Because you'll see that even before, other times, the Pharisees are always there following Jesus, giving him a hard time. Remember when he and his disciples are going through the wheat fields, and the disciples are hungry and are snacking on the wheat, and they're after him going, you're harvesting grain. And they're going, what? No, we're not. They were hungry. And he gives the example of David and his men doing the same thing. It's Jesus exercising his lordship on the Sabbath. And nowhere is this more clear than in these passages where he singles people out of a crowd to heal them on the Sabbath. And there you have the resonances of what the Sabbath is. The Sabbath and the Jubilee are very closely connected, right? A Jubilee is just this collection of Sabbaths. It's kind of a mega Sabbath, right? The whole idea of a sabbatical year coming from the Sabbath, a time of rest. Jesus' whole mission is a mission of Jubilee. If you remember from Luke 4, the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor, to set the captives free, to heal the blind, to perform all those missions that the Messiah was going to perform. And so Jesus' message and Jesus' mission are essentially Jubilee mission, Jubilee message. And so when he heals people on the Sabbath, he's fulfilling the Jubilee mission that he's given, to heal, to deliver, to redeem. And that's what's going on here. That's why you have him picking people out of the crowd to heal. And he's, in a way, kind of coming against this very exclusive interpretation by the Pharisees as to what the Sabbath meant exactly. Because basically when he heals somebody on the Sabbath and they give him a hard time, what are they telling him? But the ruler of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, said to the people, so we have some grandstanding. He's not talking to Jesus. He's saying, you see this guy? There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be healed. This is to the poor people who were just there minding their own business. They just happened to be sick or deformed, right? Not on the Sabbath day. So they're basically saying, Jesus, you just practice medicine without a license, or, whatever it is. You just practice medicine on the Sabbath. Is that the point? Is that what Jesus is trying to get him across? Jesus, see where they just they're not connecting? Jesus are talking here and he's talking here. And he's trying to say, now wait a minute. The Sabbath is a time of healing. The Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. And that's why he initiates healing. Now, let's not make any mistakes. Jesus and the Pharisees had a lot of points in common, too. Really, of all the sects, maybe with the exception of the Essenes, Jesus and the Pharisees had a lot of points in common. As a matter of fact, a lot of the Pharisees later on will become Christians, including Saul of Tarsus, for example. The resurrection of the dead that they believed in. They believed in God as Father. They believed in alms, fasting, and prayer. And of course, the two-part greatest commandment. You shall love the Lord your God, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So there are some points in common, but the Pharisees have kind of gone off in left field, idolizing the temple, idolizing the law, idolizing the Sabbath, kind of basically making it more than what it was meant to be originally. And so Jesus is supposed to be the Lord, and he shows himself by healing the poor woman all bent over with the spirit of infirmity and the man with dropsy, by picking them out of the crowd and showing them who is Lord. And so his reaction is what? You hypocrites. Remember what hypocrite meant? We looked that up. Actor, pretender. You pretend to be something that you are not. In this case, you pretend to be holy teachers, and you're not. You hypocrites. You say one thing, but you do another. Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from a manger and lead it away to water it? In other words, if it means the difference between your favorite ox or donkey starving to death or thirsting to death on the Sabbath, you are going to perform the work necessary to save it. So this poor woman is a daughter of Abraham. Shouldn't she have a chance to be untied? To be led to water? He's just kind of, picking out. It's the same. This is kind of on the same level of when he says, you all pay all attention to tithing on piles of mint and rue, little piles of spices, and you want to take 10 grains out of this and 10 grains out of that. What are you doing? You're nitpicking. Don't miss the forest for the trees. See what is happening in front of you. So the Sabbath is not the time to rest from love. I guess that's the main point. There are many other opportunities and many other ways in which Jesus will heal the sick on the Sabbath of his own initiative. Just in Luke, there are 7 other times in which he does this, okay? One more thing before we go to break. Let me just show you what a mustard seed looks like. I almost brought some from my kitchen, but then I forgot. But you know what I'm talking about, the little bitty yellow seeds. In verse 18, he said, therefore, what is the kingdom of God like, and what shall I compare it? And the parables we're going to address when we come back from break are going to have to do with things starting really, really small, but ending up really, really, really big. That is a pin, and that's the head of a pin. And these are mustard seeds. just to give you an example. Let's take a break.